the setbacks are the goal, where we really have the light bulbs go off and suddenly realize that we've just habituated to situations that weren't serving us.
It's not enough to just be an architect, a creative professional. The real question is, what are you doing? How are you making an impact if you don't know how to answer that question, or you feel too overwhelmed, stressed out, or burned out to even think about it? I'll help you get beyond the status quo trap in our profession to get inspired again. If you're ready, let's get architecting.
Hey, bright lights, welcome back to Architecting. Oh, it is such an exciting time of year. We are in the middle of conference season. With conferencing comes networking and new chances to meet people and scheme and plot about potential collaborations. It's a really exciting time. It's also a really potentially overwhelming and exhausting time, and it's really easy in those moments to shut down or to complain and go negative. And I want to keep us all focused on the positive, especially for the theme of today's episode, which is about recognizing opportunities in the form of a setback. Now, we've all been disappointed in life in many different ways. We've all experienced setbacks and losses. My dad used to always say to me, Angela, everything happens for a reason. Because he had the wisdom, obviously having 40 years on me of life experience, that what we think we want is not always what's best for us. And really, there is no. We tend to see things in a very polarized way of it's all good or it's all bad, kind of like a dramatic teenager. But the truth is, there's not really ever a no in life. There's a yes. Those are the clear, obvious, I'm getting what I want moments. There's the not yet, which means we have to wait for the timing or the circumstances to be right, but we should keep going. But what I want to explore with you today is the third thing, which is something better. If you think your career has to look a certain way and that isn't what's unfolding for you, maybe it's because you need to pivot. Everyone goes through this. I certainly experienced a lot of this in my life. In architecture school, I had stars in my eyes. I was going to change the world. I still feel that way. But when I was graduating in 1993, we were in the middle of a big recession. Nobody was hiring. And if they were, they needed people who were experienced, who could sit down and just start cranking out work. They did not need a new graduate who they had to train. I ended up having to move back home and live with my parents. I helped my dad at his office for a while, which was really humiliating because his patients had known me since I was a little girl, and they would come in and they'd be like, "Oh, you're the architect." And I would just sort of be wanting to melt into the floor and say, "Yeah, that's me. And I am not working in my field." Oh, fun. Then I got a job at an art museum, which was more interesting, better, helped me. I got to work on things like marketing and event planning and managing schedules, things like that. Got to understand how the process of selecting art for different exhibits and which artists to choose worked. So it was fun, but not related to what I wanted to do. So I decided to go to graduate school, which I did. I went to graduate school in a part of the country, Arizona, where the economy was a whole lot better. Thinking this will be easy to get a job aligned with the things I really want to do. I want to work with social and cultural issues in design. I want to work for firms that do that kind of work. Graduate school itself was transformative. I got so much clarity. I really did some deep dives that just sharpened everything I was interested in. And now it was time, yep, you got it, to find that permanent job at a firm. And I even interviewed for a firm that did exactly that. And they hemmed and hawed and didn't get back to me, and in the end didn't hire me. So I ended up at a job at a small startup firm doing commercial retail that was mostly prototype work, a lot of gas station and convenience stores. That felt like settling. It wasn't my ideal job, but I needed a job. So there we go. I'm working for this company. And my boss knew that the work we were doing wasn't the most exciting. So he would give me lots of opportunities to do things like go to conferences or to be active in the community. He encouraged that. So I applied for and was placed on the Housing and Neighborhoods Commission for the city of Phoenix. We joined a local nonprofit that was about improving quality of life in the greater Phoenix metropolitan area, and he let me be the company representative for that. He supported me being active in the AIA, all of that kind of stuff. When we did marketing, he knew I liked that, so he let me do it. He let me teach myself how to build a website and create the company's first website, new logo for business cards and letterhead. Let me do a research project on the canal systems in Phoenix, all while primarily my portfolio is, of course, gas stations and convenience stores. Makes me a project manager, so I get to learn how to handle consultants and things like that. But still, it feels a little bit like after 4 years, can't do much more. So I eventually change jobs, work at a different company. The work is better there. I get my first introduction to healthcare work there, working on bigger, more complex projects, have more opportunities to grow professionally. And then I find out that my parents' health is really bad. The timing of this is around the time my daughter is born. It's getting harder and harder to be 2,000 miles away from them. My mother went through a series of surgeries and hospitalizations and was basically in and out of the hospital the last 4 years of her life. My dad wasn't doing a whole lot better. Sometimes they were even put in the same hospital room together because they were both there at the same time. So we relocate back to Northeast Ohio, and that feels tough, right? I had interviewed at firms in the area and even gotten a job at one of them that they reneged on days before I was supposed to start. Apparently, they'd hired me for a big job they thought they were going to get that then ended up not materializing. Thanks for that. I'm not working any longer because I left my job in Phoenix while I was on maternity leave. And here I am living with my dad, trying to help him take care of himself, taking care of a new baby. My husband is still back in Phoenix, trying to just sort things out with my mom. So eventually decide to stay in Northeast Ohio, get a job in Cleveland. I'm closer to my parents. My husband is not happy about that. And really, this relocation sort of the beginning of the end of our marriage. So go through a lot in my personal life, dealing with being a new mom, dealing with a husband who's starting to really struggle with what I didn't recognize at the time were mental health and addiction issues. Working at truly one of the most toxic places I've ever worked at, that is trying to get blood out of a stone of their employees, spending my weekends driving an hour and a half to Youngstown. So I've got a lot going on, a lot that's making it hard just to keep my head above water every single day. Life seems to be coming at me with setbacks in literally every single aspect. I'm feeling this whole sense of my life just short-circuiting. Eventually, in this time period, both of my parents pass away. In that economic downturn that happened in the late aughts, the 2000s. We held on till about 2010. And then, there were layoffs. And so while all this stuff in my personal life is happening, I'm also having to pivot to doing consulting work because I got thrown under the bus at my toxic work by somebody higher up the food chain who was looking to save his own ass. Having to deal with so much loss, I end up getting a job where I am now in Cincinnati, which was a really positive move. But again, I'm rebuilding. I'm starting over. I'm having to recreate a network. You can look at all this and be like, well, those are a lot of setbacks. Some of them are personal. Some of them are career related. Some of them were out of my control. It was the economy. Lots of things. But at the consulting work, I got to be really good with social media, which was starting to become important. I was learning about messaging and marketing and how to present myself and getting a lot of clarity, connecting the dots like you've heard me talk about before, about what am I really about? What things in my entire career path from when I was in school to now are pointing towards that. That was when I started the blog, the Patron Saint of Architecture, which eventually became, this podcast, rebranded it as Architecting, and really started to understand that I had a role in helping architects make a difference. Not just be sycophants, not just be the waitress taking the order for the client in fear of what happens if we don't get the job or lose the client and tap dancing on command, but rather to say, we have a lot of power in our profession and let's use that for good, right? With great power comes great responsibility. You're kind of wasting that power when all you do is take orders from somebody else and never use your own mind. My grandfather used to say to me when I was growing up, if you have to use somebody else's head, you might as well cut your own off. Think for yourself. And I think our profession needed to do that. So all of this inspired me to be that advocate for the role of the architect, the power of the architect, and actually the work that I was so passionate about, that I specialized in, the social and cultural issues that inform design, what would later become all of my research in salutogenesis, that totally applied because it just was more evidence of how design truly matters and makes a difference. You have this life story. You have good things and bad things. And what I'm hoping that you heard as I went through each phase of my career, from not getting work right off the bat in the early parts of my career to working at a firm that maybe wasn't the most glamorous job, to working on more complex projects but not having the leadership role I wanted, to enduring a toxic work experience, to be a consultant. In all of those, you could see the negative, but you could also see the opportunities. I learned so much working at my dad's office and working at that museum that I was able to apply into other jobs throughout my career. I learned about graphic design and mass mailings and how to communicate with people and how to get bills paid and how Medicare and other insurances work, which actually has served me in my work as a healthcare architect, believe it or not. So this was valuable. Nothing is ever wasted. At the next job I had, I learned about positioning a firm. I learned about how important it is to be part of professional organizations. I learned how to challenge myself to do things that I had no clue how to do, like code and build a website, and that I could do it. I really could do anything I set my mind to. I learned to manage people and manage consultants, just continued to get experience. So that is what I want to really focus you on, is no matter where you've been, look at what you have gained from that. What did you like from that experience that you want more of? What didn't you like? What lessons did you learn that you will never repeat as long as you consciously surface them, right? Because if we aren't happy at a job, but we don't really articulate why, and we just feel like a victim and blame everybody else, we're probably going to repeat that experience even if we move on to another company. So we really have to look at what didn't work and why, so that we know how to recognize that so we don't get put in that situation again, and we know how to ask for what we really do want. You have to understand what your non-negotiables are, but that only can come from experience. You have to oftentimes experience the contrast to know what you don't want, to know what you do want. We all have our wish lists. We're probably not going to get the perfect opportunity that ticks every single box, but there are those things that for you personally are going to be your non-negotiables that you're going to want to talk about in an interview. And you're going to want to vet this company and make sure they really are aligned so that you're not saying, fundamentally, this is a bad fit, because that's not going to work out over time. You want to be aspirational. So look back at what you learned and start to say, how can I use this to make my next move a move up, not a lateral move? If you had some great coworkers or a boss that maybe you outgrew the work, but was a really good person for you, this is now a powerful group you've added to your network. Could some of these people be a mentor for you? A mentor who isn't in the weeds so they can help you see the higher view? Can you ask them for letters of recommendation? Can they maybe introduce you to people or broaden your involvement in projects or opportunities in professional organizations or other things like that? So there's so many opportunities that you could use so that what feels like a setback to you right now can really be a shortcut to you having success on your own terms. It's that opportunity to rebrand yourself, to be more authentic, to get really clear on what you actually want to do, to stop tolerating what is sapping your energy but not moving you forward, and to really look at how your soft skills, which are often the thing that people are hiring for just as much as experience, have been sharpened. You may realize that you want a whole different kind of career. Maybe you were in practice and you'd rather move over to an institution or vice versa. Or maybe you want to be a product rep, or maybe you want to go into education. Those things are helping you get more insight and be more aligned, which is really what we're all here to do on this journey that we are on. We all have a unique purpose, and I know that sounds like a platitude, but it's really not. You will never truly be happy or be fulfilled unless you are doing the work you feel called to do. I could tell you what I feel called to do and why and how I pursued it, but I can't tell you that. You have to do that work. Often the setbacks are the goal where we really have the light bulbs go off and suddenly realize that we've just habituated to situations that weren't serving us, and this becomes our wake-up call. We know we're in a time of great change right now in the world, and change is an opportunity for disruption, and disruption is what opens up the path to true innovation. If you're ready for a change, or maybe you weren't ready for a change, jump or be pushed, right? It is now your chance to reinvent yourself into a truer, better version that is much more aligned with where you really want to be, and step into the future fearlessly, knowing that if you know what you want, you will see those aligned opportunities, just like I was saying when I started, can almost be overwhelming. Once you have that clarity, once you position yourself in that authentic way, watch the magic happen. All right, everyone, I am going to leave you with that thought, hopefully also that inspiration. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you're listening to podcasts and pass this along to a friend, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. If you want even more content, head on over to architectingpodcast.com and subscribe to my newsletter and get some great free downloads while you're there. Be sure to follow me on social media. On Instagram at Architecting Podcast, Facebook and LinkedIn pages are Architecting, and the YouTube channel Architecting Podcast. Stay inspired.